Very privileged and honored to be sharing stage with none other than Mr. Sonam Wangchuk and Ms. Gitanjali J. Angmo. Of course, we all know Three Idiots that was inspired by Sir's life journey was a breath of fresh air for all the students who were burdened by the pressures of the education system. And having the real hero amongst us is definitely very exciting. So I'm sure the students here are very excited. So a big round of applause. Gitanjali ma'am too shares the same vision and believes in an alternative way of education. So we're very happy to have you amongst us as well and looking forward to hear your thoughts. So the topic for today is Think Beyond Dreams. So let's dream of a sustainable future so that dreams don't turn into nightmares, as Sir has rightly put. We would first like to give the opportunity to the students to ask their questions that they have prepared for Sir and Ma'am, and then we'll continue. Shourya, you can ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. I wanted to ask that has the mantra and attitude of all is well, popularized by the movie Three Idiots, shaped your approach to life and your efforts in the fields of education and social entrepreneurship?
Well, not exactly in those words because it's a loosely adapted thing, but yes, I always find everything well and celebrate that, not because everything is well, but because I start with minimal expectations. Yeah? So it's our expectations that make things good or bad. If you expect roses, then even leaves will make it not well for you. But if you expect thorns and you get leaves, they'll be even better than flowers. So all is always well if you start with lower expectations. I have an equation. Happiness is equal to reality minus expectations. If your expectations are big, then happiness will always be in negative. Yeah? If your expectations are small, then no matter what reality is, it will be very positive and you'll always be happy and all will be well.
Suhana, please ask your question.
Good afternoon, ma'am. My question for you is, you're an entrepreneur turned educator. Your mindset that the aim of education is to instill this lifelong quest for learning and progressing takes me to deep thinking. Please tell us more about this idea.
So life as unending education, that's your question. And to take the idea that Sonam introduced, I would like to present a very beautiful concept that arises from the Indian system of the Purusharthas. There are 4 Purusharthas of Artha, Kama, Dharma and Moksha. So before you give up a desire, the Indian knowledge system, Indian spirituality acknowledges that we are also physical and emotional beings and we do have desires. And therefore, it is important to also earn your livelihood, and the students here, they would take up careers. And that's where you have unending progress as well. Because when you take up a career, your education does not end with your professional degree. Today, technologies are advancing at such a fast pace that one has to keep learning on the job. So that's the first aspect of unending education, that in your professional life, all your life, you will have to keep earning your artha because you have to sustain your physical. It is a reality.
Hello.
The second is karma, and very beautifully, it also maps to our 4 ashramas, which is the brahmacharya, the grihasthashram, sannyasa, and the, what is the third? Vanaprastha. It beautifully maps to that. So the first ashram of brahmacharya is where one works on being disciplined. Okay, that's your student life. You work on learning and discipline and obedience. That is the brahmacharya. Now the next of karma is what maps with grihasthashram. Okay, and there also there is unending progress, because your family that is dependent on you, you have to look after them. Okay, and you have to take care of their well-being, their emotional needs, your children, your parents, your father. It's that relational world where you have to forever progress all through your lives. And to live in your family harmoniously, you have to keep growing yourself. Okay, like when you are on your own in your student life, you're only thinking about your own marks and your own education. But once you get married and you have children, you place their interests first. That is a huge education, that you place yourself second. And that is an unending education. The third of dharma is very interesting. Again, it maps also with the 4 varnas. Unfortunately, these varnas have been translated into caste. It was not caste. Varna was temperament. And it was also the stage in your life that you are. So the first brahmacharya is of Shudra. The Shudra is the person who is always disciplined and who works for others and so on. Okay, and that there is an unending progress in that. To be a good Shudra all your life, is to be obedient, to be disciplined all your life. It's an unending education. Then you have the Vaishya, which corresponds with your grihasthashram. That is the life of mutuality, of give and take. That is the swadharma of a Vaishya. Okay, you give and take, mutuality. And there is an unending progress in that, because life is, whether you do a business, you do in your family, in your work life, though our education system just promotes individual excellence, but it is all about teamwork. It's about mutuality. It's about constantly reflecting upon who am I, and changing it, and using the relationships as a mirror. Because each relationship shows us what is good or what is lacking in us. So that's an unending education by itself. The third stage of the kshatriya, okay, which is the vanaprastha, is when you start living for a cause larger than yourself. Okay, that is the dharma part of the Purushartha. So you have built yourself up, you have looked after your families and your responsibilities. Now it's time to give back to society. It is to live for a cause larger than yourself. It could be in the field of education, it can be in the field of environment, nation building, anything. And all of us are born with that idealism in our hearts. We are not these petty individuals who are born for our livelihoods alone. Society somehow makes us believe in it. Education today is all about placement. But the real education of the Gurukul system was to find out your swadharma and to continue to do that for the rest of your life. So we are all born with an idealism, and we are all born to make an impact in this world. And that again is an unending education, because you keep finding whatever best the world needs. And the Gita says that the highest you can give and do is loka sangraha. Because Arjuna asked this question to Krishna, that you are asking me to give up all desire. So if I give up all desire, like Buddha said, eliminate all desire, then why will I act? Can you think of it? I mean, if all your desires are gone, then why will you get up tomorrow morning to do what? And the Gita says that you work for loka sangraha. Loka sangraha means bringing together people. And you don't bring together people through League of Nations or United Nations or such external socio-political economic forums alone. And that is where the fourth stage of sannyasa or of moksha or of spiritual aspiration, growing spiritually, comes in, which is an unending education in itself. That after you have worked for a cause larger than yourself, then you work for the fulfillment of divine in this world. And loka sangraha, or bringing together people, can only happen when you have realized the highest divine essence in yourself, and you help others realize the divine essence, and we are one in that essence. That's the only way we come together. Okay, so in all these 4 Purusharthas, there is unending education. And in my life, that's what I try to do. at the age of 33, I began to learn karate, and I became a black belt and a world champion. And this was along with my son, who was very young, and we together became black belts. At the age of 35, when ballerinas retire, I started doing ballet and went on point shoes. That was to check if it is true that it is all in the mind. We start believing that physically we stop becoming flexible and all of that. So it is not true that there is no age limit actually, and that is what I wanted to check for myself so that I can tell the world. Ballet is the most difficult form of dance and also of physical fitness. And I took that up, and now I believe that if the most difficult physical thing you can take up at any age, then any emotional or mental activity can be taken up by us anytime in our lives. That's unending education.
So the applause speaks for itself, that it's really inspiring. So what was it that inspired you, to leave all the comforts, once, as people say that you had already achieved it all and you were doing it all, but yet, there was something that was longing, and so probably what was it that made you do all this?
So perhaps I reached the third stage of making an impact in the world. So right from my childhood, I was a topper as a student, but I always felt that education did not have any particular relevance. We were not applying what we were studying. And also, it was not used to grow in consciousness, or it was just something to get exams and results and get a job. So I think I must have been in class 5 when I vowed to myself that before I die this year, I'm going to change the education system so that next birth I do not have to go through this. So perhaps that was the sanskara, as we say, the seed that was sown. And when this opportunity came up to set up this university, it felt like Rabindranath Tagore himself, who was setting up Shanti Niketan, and how many people get this opportunity to set up a university, which also will have a K-12 school. So Ladakh could be harsh, but if such an opportunity came up even on the moon, I would go there, because it is something to make an impact. And I believe that the 4 or 5 pillars of education that we are trying to establish in Hayal has a potential to change the way education is being looked at in the world. And having traveled to Oxford, Cambridge to give various lectures and talks in the US, etc., I have found that we do not have a precedent of what we are trying to do. So we are the first of our kind. Number one is we are following an education that is contextual. So the youth, like here, the aim in our university is not to give them certificates so that they can leave their motherland and go to UK or US. We tell our students that if you do that, for us, you are failures. So for us, if the students go back to their village and make it a smart village, then only they are considered successful, because India can transform only one village at a time. So the students are given contextual education because that's where innovation happens. If I know all about the Amazon forest and the savannas, but I don't know what grows in my own backyard, in my garden, I cannot innovate. And that's why our kids do not innovate. So the first principle that we follow is contextual education. And the second is not just theory, which you just study, but you apply in life. So in winters, our students with Sonam, they are in -25 winters, they are making ice stupas, solving actual contextual problem of water for the actual people who are suffering in the villages. And they're doing it experientially, learning by doing. And then the third thing which we are trying to do is to reclaim this great indigenous wisdom, because India, amongst all the civilizations, is a only 10,000-year-old living civilization in the world. All the new civilizations are either 500 or 1,000 years old, and the old ones are dead and gone. So there must be something India did right in environment, in education, in our relationship with nature, with resources, etc. And it is, unfortunately, because we were colonized and invaded for more than 1,000 years, We have lost this confidence to look into our wisdom and our past, and we are looking westward for all the solutions. But we teach our students to go and look into our indigenous wisdom and blend it with modern technology. So for instance, we make these passive solar heated buildings using our 1,000-year-old earth architecture and blending the solar passive technologies which are there now to make buildings that stay at +20 in -20 winters without any artificial heating. And that is how we are paving a way for the world towards carbon neutrality. So these technologies are not even there in Switzerland and US. People from there come to see it.
Yes, and I believe the Indian Army also has approached you
Yes.
to help them create these kind of infrastructures, in order to bear the harsh climate. And so talking about innovation, we have with us, of course, the pioneer of innovation. And your project, the ICE 2PA, as ma'am mentioned, was definitely a lot, talked about. So how did you really come up with this idea, and what kind of an impact has it had on the Ladakh region?
So every region faces some challenges, and people respond to that by trying to solve it. Ladakh is a desert, a cold desert at very high altitude on the Tibetan plateau, which is often called the roof of the world. So you have a big flat plain at 10 to 12,000 feet altitude. Now, it's a desert, so the water is an issue all the time. It's not just today that we realize that. I grew up hearing innovative ideas of our ancestors who used to do various things to conserve water or to make ice in winter so that it is available in spring. Now, my contribution to this was that these ice streams would melt very fast in the spring and melt away before the farmers need. So then we wanted to prolong the ice into June and July when people need water and not have them melt in March before anybody needs them. People need in April, May, June. So then we wanted to know how to keep it for longer. And the answer came from our textbooks. Our textbooks look very useless, but if you really think of applications, they are very useful also. First, we were thinking of shading the ice with nets and so on, which is very expensive, not practical. Where will you get such huge nets? The answer came from geometry, 8th grade geometry maybe, which says there are certain shapes that have low surface area for the given volume. If you remember your geometry, shapes like spheres, hemispheres, or even cones have very low surface area for the volume. Why I'm talking about surface area and volume is because sun, when it gets lot of surface area, can melt the ice prematurely, which is what farmers don't want. So we don't want to give surface area to the sun. But farmers, what they want is volume. They don't care about surface area. They want volume. So the shapes with high volume, low surface area are hemispheres and cones. So we said, rather than putting nets and things, how about using geometry? So we started making ice in the shape of cones, which is a natural shape it takes. When you have anything dripping, it will form a cone below. You don't have any freezing here, but you can see with sugar or rice or soil, if you drop it, it will form a cone below. And cone is the shape we want. So we just made the water drop from a height, and it made a cone itself. And this cone had that property, low surface area, high volume. So it would last till June, July, when all other ice has gone by March or April, before people need it. Now the second part is, how do you lift water so high and drop? It's easier said than done. Huh? You need a huge pump to lift any water. So there again we used what is in our textbooks, simple primary school science, that water always maintains its level. You must have studied, no? Water always maintains its level. That's why all water bodies are flat. If you have a pipe, then water will always maintain the level. That's why our masons use pipes to check levels. So we used nothing, no rocket science, just that water wants to maintain its level. So in that mason's pipe, if you have a big one and you put it upstream, high up, and bring that pipe low, a kilometer low, for example, then the water will want to go to that height because it has to maintain its level. So there's a huge pressure in the pipe, water wanting to go to that level. Now, if you have come downslope, because we are in the mountains, so things are upslope and downslope. If you come downslope, you always have that in the stream, upstream and downstream. Put the pipe upstream and you bring it to a desert, the water will want to go to that level, 20 meters higher. So against that pressure, if you put a fountain, then water sprays into the air, into the minus 20 air of winters, and mid-air it turns from liquid to solid, from water to ice, and in the shape of a cone also, because that's what we wanted. So without any pumps, fuels, power or power bills or pollution, you're able to lift water several stories high just because of gravity, thanks to this primary school science. So your school books have a lot of value if you find applications for them. So every time you study some chapter, think of where to apply it. And if it has no application, then go meet your teachers and say, we don't need to have. They'll say what to do, we can't change it. Then say, we'll go together and meet the Minister of Education, meet the journalists, make public opinion that these chapters have no value, no sense. But those chapters have, and you don't teach us. Things have changed. You know, today there are things that you need, those are not in the textbooks. So you have to find applications, and that's exactly what we did.
So thank you so much, because many times my children do ask me that, Mama, why are we learning this geometry? Because we don't know where we're going to really use it. So thank you for answering that. Now I have something I can tell my children. So definitely there's a lot that you can apply. So don't think that your geometry is just a waste, because an incredible innovation has just happened. So it's up to you. It's your mind as to how you can apply. I would like to speak about something else here. Quoting you, sir. 7 lakh Tibetan Buddhists killed, temples destroyed. दुनिया खामोश है, सौदा करना चाहती है. 10 lakh Uyghur Muslims in jail, mosques destroyed. दुनिया खामोश है, सौदा करना चाहती है. Very aptly quoted by you. Sir, you have endorsed the boycott of Chinese products, and there was a trend to do so a year back. However, it all seems to have died down, and it is business as usual. Is it because all is well?
The world has gone addicted to cheap goods that they think they can have and in large numbers. And China is behind that. Cheap products that people buy in large numbers, more than necessary, and it's like an addiction. You want to have it, even if you know that it has very bad environmental consequences. We are able to buy phones left, right, and center because one country is making them very cheap and killing every other country's ability to produce those for themselves, because they, what we call, dump and undercut the markets. And they are doing it with a very calculated purpose. They want to kill all other countries' production so that they can have total control. And yet, we don't see that. We don't see that. We only see the price tag and buy it. It's like you know it's going to harm you, this drug or alcohol, but you are addicted to it. So, सौदा करना चाहती है. क्योंकि हम अब सस्ते चीज़ों से के आदी हो चुके हैं. पीछे क्या चल रहा है हमें समझ नहीं आता है, पीछे एक षड्यंत्र चल रहा है। हाँ? क्यों वो सस्ता दे सकते हैं? क्योंकि पहला कारण है कि वो उनका है नहीं, उनके फ्यूचर जनरेशन का है। जितना उनका या औरों का लिथियम होगा वो सब निकाल के आज बेचेंगे, क्योंकि उनका क्या जाता है, ये तो ज़मीन के नीचे का कोयला है, आयरन है, सब निकाल के बेचो और बिना किसी कीमत के बेचो, ताकि दुनिया पे हम कंट्रोल कर सकें। अभी जो डिस्पेंसेशन वहाँ है, अगर वो इस पे ना चले तो रेवोल्यूशन हो जाएगा। चाइना में लोगों के पास जो जिस इनकम के लोग वहाँ के एडिक्ट हो चुके हैं, एडिक्शन कई लेवल पे है। चाइना के लोगों से हमें कोई वो नहीं होनी चाहिए, क्योंकि वो भी इसी सरकार के गिरफ्त में हैं, वो भी नशे में हैं कि फ्यूल होता रहे तब तक वो खामोश चलते रहेंगे। जिस दिन ये बंद होगा एक रेवोल्यूशन आएगा। दूसरा, वो एनवायरनमेंट का कोई कदर नहीं करता है, जो होता है कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है उससे। तीसरा, वो अंडरकट करने के लिए सब्सिडाइज करते हैं, ताकि शुरू में जो भी इंडस्ट्री है वो सब मर जाए। भारत में जो खिलौनों की उद्योग थी उसको उन्होंने आधे कीमत पे बेच के मार डाला। अब वो 4 गुने कीमत पे बेचें भी तो हमें वही खरीदना होगा। अब दोबारा से हमारी इंडस्ट्री को आने में बहुत मेहनत या वक्त या लगभग नामुमकिन होगी। कमाएंगे वो कल को, आज वो आपको नशे में डालेंगे। ओपियम और इन चीज़ों पे ज़्यादा समझ आता था, मगर जो चीज़ों का नशा है वो हम देख नहीं पाते हैं। तो पूरी दुनिया इस नशे में है इस वक्त, चाइनीज़ चीप प्रोडक्ट्स के। ये एक देश की बात नहीं है, ये प्रकृति के साथ एक खिलवाड़ है। हाँ? जिस तरह से वो बहुत सस्ते दामों पे दे रहे हैं और उसके वजह से जितना पोल्यूशन हो रहा है, प्रदूषण हो रहा है, मैं बहुत हैरान होता हूँ कभी कभी। आप देखेंगे सबसे बड़े प्रदूषक में चाइना आएगा, अमेरिका खुद को काफ़ी चौथे, 5वें, 10वें नंबर पे, या भारत खुद को नीचे पाएगा, चाइना को आगे। असल में देखें तो ये चाइनीज़ पोल्यूशन नहीं है, जो खरीद रहे हैं उसका पोल्यूशन है। हो चाइना में रहा है, एक्चुअली यूएस कर रहा है, क्योंकि यूएस ने अपना फैक्ट्री वहाँ बदल दिया है। तो पोल्यूशन तो उन्हीं का है, और पोल्यूशन का तो कोई सीमा नहीं है, बॉर्डर नहीं है, वो तो पूरे दुनिया को वो करेगा। तो पर्यावरण के दृष्टि से भी ये एक पदार्थ की तरह है, माद्य पदार्थ, ड्रग की तरह है। और हम अपने ज़िंदगी में देखें तो हम ऐसे कपड़ों से, ऐसे कारों से, ऐसे मोबाइल्स के आदी हो चुके हैं जो इतने ही सस्ते हों, इसलिए लोग खरीदते जा रहे हैं। सबको पता है कि यही पैसा कल को बंदूकें बन के हमारे सीमा पर हमारे फौजी भाइयों को मारेंगे, मगर हमें तो सस्ता फ़ोन चाहिए, क्योंकि हम आदी हो चुके हैं। अब आपके पास 10 कपड़े होंगे चाइनीज़, उसके बदले में 3 अच्छे कपड़े रखें, कुछ आपको फ़र्क नहीं पड़ेगा, मगर आप आदी हो चुके हैं तो आप 10 सस्ते खरीदना चाहेंगे और वो पैसा उधर जाएगा। आपके अपने देश की सारी जो उद्योग है वो खत्म हो जाएगा। ये इस तरह का एक चक्रव्यूह है जिसमें हम फंसते जा रहे हैं। सोचिएगा आप लोग, अगली बार दिवाली में जब आप गिफ्ट करें तो बड़ा सा चाइनीज़ या 10 चाइनीज़ चीज़ों से 2 ही अच्छे हाथ के बने हुए चीज़ें लोगों को गिफ्ट में दीजिएगा।
और जो इसको फ्यूल करता है वो एक जो भारतीय हमारी मानसिकता है, जो कि स्वाभिमान जिसमें नहीं रहा। हमारी एजुकेशन सिस्टम जो है वो पेट्रियोटिज्म, वो नेशनल प्राइड वो इंस्टिल नहीं करती है। जैसे हमें पता है कि ये वापस चाइना को स्ट्रॉन्ग करेगा, बट हमको उसकी चिंता नहीं है। हमें बस आज कुछ सस्ता चाहिए, तो एजुकेशन का भी ये बहुत बड़ा दायित्व है कि वो ये जो स्वाभिमान है, ये जो नेशनलिज्म है, इसको बढ़ावा दे। Parents just want the children to become engineers and doctors, but liberal arts is what makes you a human being. If it's a democracy, everybody has to think before he or she votes. And to vote right, you have to know what is right. To know what is right, the mind has to be developed through the study of philosophy, history, anthropology, sociology. So every child technical or not, has to have a development of the brain through liberal arts education.
Thank you so much. I thank Indore Literature Festival for giving us the opportunity to hear Sir and Ma'am and their thoughts. And I'm sure the audience is eagerly awaiting to ask some questions. So I will open up for just 2 questions, as that is the time permitted. So 2 questions, no opinions, just 2 relevant questions, please.
CBSE is one education system that is for the masses, and they have their own limitations. But if given a choice, what reforms do you suggest in CBSE which can actually affect or affect the region, and it can work for every region?
So CBSE is Central Board of School Education, no? That I have some problem with. How can education be central when problems are decentralized, when the pains and problems are so varied and diverse? How can your answer to that be one answer for everything? So it should be actually DBSE, Decentralized Board of School Education, so that we in Ladakh get what we need. We have cold winters, please, we want more of that in our curriculum. We'll live better there. You want, some cool technologies for hot summers, so you could have that and be very happy, rather than us studying about how to keep yourself cool. And I'm not joking. I always tell people my shock of the life was when I went to a school and all the children in the classroom were memorizing A for apple, B for ball. That was fine. But when it came to F, they were memorizing F for fan, F for fan. And then children who were a bit confused would ask the teacher, "But sir, what is this? Is it a bird or a bee or a what, this fan?" And the teacher would scratch his head and say, "Son, I have never seen one." And now with their eyes popping out, "But why does one need to be cooler than we are, sir, in this shivering room?" Central Board of School Education, we get to learn about fans in Ladakh, and perhaps you will be learning about glaciers here. Doesn't make any sense. So our early education definitely has to start from home, village to the world, or from known to unknown, which is why it needs to be looked differently. And you may lead to the same goal, because we are a nation after all, but paths need to be different. Right now, that's not the case. We need to decentralize all education systems, not only at school level, even at the university level. I'm sure you have things to say.
Yeah, in addition to decentralizing, we also have to decolonize. And the same story is in higher education institutes as well. I was at I would not name it, eminent management institute in the country doing a course in data analytics. And we had data, health incidence data from Pennsylvania. And I just went up to the professor and I said, would it not be better to have it of Ahmedabad? That was IIM Ahmedabad. IIM Ahmedabad, one of the premier education management systems, also does not have contextual data. If the kids there, management kids who are studying, have at least, they can think innovative ways of dealing with that disease. And it's the same story after 25 years. When I was doing my MBA at Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, we had case studies of imagining ourselves to be CEOs of Coca-Cola. So can you imagine a 20-year-old has to imagine being a global CEO of a company like Coca-Cola and do a case study when we have right next door problems like the handicrafts of Orissa, which are so skilled, made by skilled workers, but don't have a market. So I'm sure as a 20-year-old, I may not be able to solve the global Pepsi or Coca-Cola problems, but I can solve the problem of this Pipili, handicraft weaver, and to use my marketing skills to market that. So this is a combination of, decontextualization and decolonization that be it CBSE or ICSE or higher education, we have to really work at it on war footing if we have to truly bring a transformation in this country. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. On that note, that education needs to be more relevant, I would like to thank Gitanjali ma'am and Sonam ji for giving us all the wonderful words of wisdom and all the time that you've given us. Thank you so much, and thank you to the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.